What if a church actually took God at His word?
Where every member felt a part of something eternal. And no matter who you were, where you were from, or what you'd done, you knew you had a part to play in something bigger than yourself. Where the Bible wasn't just a suggestion, but was our blueprint for everything we did, even the controversial parts. And those who led did so by being willing to sit on the floor first when there weren't enough chairs for everyone else. Where we didn't follow a clock or a genre or a cultural movement, we followed the Holy Spirit even when no one else did. And when we spoke about family, we actually lived it, with relationships that were loving, raw, and messy. Where miracles still happened, prophecies still flowed, signs and wonders followed, and the poor were welcomed with open arms. And above all else, when you walked into our midst, you couldn't help but meet the person of Jesus. We're not there yet, but this is our dream. Welcome to JoshGen.
Hello, my name is Nadine, and I have the immense privilege of telling you my testimony, God's story through my life, how God has taken just an ordinary life and did extraordinary things with it so far. So I was born into a very happy family. I've got a brother that's 17 months older than me, and parents that still to this day love each other and serve God. And we went to quite a traditional church growing up. So I remember Sundays is going to church, getting dressed up. I learned a lot about God and God's stories and the Bible stories through there. But then when I was 7 years old, I remember going on a camp with some of my friends. The families were together, and then I was on the beach with them chatting. Can't remember what went down, but I remember telling my friend, "No, man, our parents would never know about this." And then she said, "No, but God would know." And that just struck me of like, oh yes, actually, this God that I've heard about, He's real. He's everywhere. He's in us, looking down on us. And that just set a course for my life. So something so natural of a little girl just shining the light. And set a course for my life that God is always with me and that I live for His audience, not to please my family or anyone around. And then when I was, I must have been 9 or 10, I remember, just because God is real, so chatting to Him, and I remember God sitting next to me on the bed one day, or it felt to me like He was sitting right here. And we were talking, I can't remember what about, probably just normal life stuff, but I remember the end of the conversation being, "Of course, my whole life is yours." And worshiping God, loving to go to church, and learning more about Him. Then when I was about 12, in 1992, I started getting these headaches. And the doctors that we went to said that's normal because she's coming of age, and don't worry about it too much. And then at the end of the school term, I would start looking up, and so I'd write on my book and then look up, and then the shooting pain would come from the back of my head to the front, and I'd just be like, whoa. So that happened at the end of the year, and then we'd swim at school, and I couldn't dive down into it because, again, this headache would just grow stronger and stronger. And at the end of the year, in the school holidays, I was just lying in bed, didn't want to eat much. And finally, my mom convinced one doctor to take a scan of my brain. So what happened is we went in, and then they came out and they said a tumor the size of my fist was pushing on the back of my head on my medulla oblongata, which is your brainstem. So that controls all your brain functions, sending messages from your brain to the rest of your body. So controls your heart, controls breathing, controls everything, like movement. So 3 different doctors came and they said, no, it's probably cancer. They can't do a biopsy because of the pressure, and it's too far advanced for any chemo or radiation. What they can do is they can put a stent in that will relieve some of the pressure, and then hopefully they can operate after a while. And my parents say they also served God their whole life, but now they had to trust him for something real. And with all the doctors was just saying, no, but you have to put the stent in. And my dad he just felt, no, he's going to trust God, that God would heal me. He just left it. And then they said, but if you leave it, she won't make Christmas. So my family came down, holiday, and we were just praying from those messages that go out, pray for this 12-year-old girl lying in hospital with a tumor. God has to come through. And then, amazingly, my families were in this room. It was Christmas Eve. They were all praying, and then my brother remembers going out and just going to the bathroom, holding onto the sink and saying, God, I know you're real, but if you heal my sister, my whole life is yours. And I just remember, so the next morning, Christmas morning, I woke up. I had this thing on my finger and these stickers all over me, and I wasn't quite sure where I was. And a nurse walked in saying, Merry Christmas, and she brought me a piece of Christmas cake. And then the doctor came in just saying, where is the sick child that was dying a little while earlier? And now I was sitting up and having a conversation. And then they decided to operate. My dad just felt a piece of okay, no, he knows now it's safe to operate. And then when the doctors opened me up, they couldn't see any cancer. So he said there was normal brain fluids, maybe there was a bleed. So they did another scan where they would dye your veins, and they couldn't see any weaknesses in any of my veins. So they said I was fine. There was something, and now it's just inexplainable that I'm fine again. Something else the doctor also said was, if they did put a stent in me a while ago, I would have bled out. So my dad made the right decision. And it was 3 different doctors that gave the reports of, no, you have to, otherwise she's going to die. And God he was just faithful. He knows how to speak clearly when he wants you to do something. And he was gracious to my whole family and to me, saving me in such a way. So then our lives changed, and I must say it got so much more exciting. We've always been an adventurous family and loving God's nature, but now we realize God is everywhere. And we went to a new church, a spirit-filled church in East London, and we just served the church. My parents got involved in the overhead, and I remember going to church earlier and being there most of the day, helping pack our chairs, and that was just our new life, serving the church as much as we can, because that's God's family. So and we joined youth and got filled with the Spirit. It was actually the time of the Toronto blessing, so there was a lot of amazing moves of the Spirit. As a family, we just grew closer to each other and closer to God, got baptized. And then in 1994, we moved to Cape Town. We would go to church every Sunday, and life just got busier with these teenagers. We joined the youth, made incredible friends, and even in that, I see God's hand of protection over me, just where He chose the people that influenced my life to be good people and people who would spur each other on and to know Him. Spur each other on to be what God's called us to be. And then came the end of the school year, and I was starting to think, what am I going to study? Where am I going to go? What does God want from me? And I started feeling so much pressure. So my heart got a bit bitter, and I felt pressure of needing to be this perfect girl because God did this amazing thing in my life, and I must always be sweet and happy and kind, and I just felt too much pressure. I just wanted to get away from it all, and the opportunity came for me to go to Scotland for 2 years to work in a hotel. I remember I think there was 1 or 2 people who would on a Sunday go to church, and I found out about the church. I asked them, and they said, no, it's quite a traditional church, and I thought, no, I am too good for that. God has saved me out of that. I just do spirit-filled mega churches. So, because that's how God moves. So I didn't go to church on Sundays. And I just started with my friends. We would go to clubs and living, like enjoying my life, making money, having fun. Then my brother phoned me the one day and he said, I had a dream about you where he saw God holding onto my hand, and he saw me slowly slipping out of God's hand. And he said, I'm not sure where you are at with your relationship with God, but just this is what I saw. So I said, no man, I'm just enjoying myself, I'm fine. And I wasn't that bad. I got drunk once and maybe I went to clubs and kissed a few guys, and that's it. So I was just still being a good girl, but living life my way. And then it was my birthday one year, and my family sent me this package. And I think there was some sweets and some South African food in it. And then also the CD. I can't remember the name of the CD anymore, but I remember listening to it, and there was this one song that stood out to me, and it was like God spoke audibly through the CD to me. And the words of the song said, what once was black became grey, and what's grey became tasty. And now you're selling your future on the altar of today. Won't you please take my hand? Let's walk away. And I just realized, God, what am I doing? I'm living the life my way, and not really being too rebellious, but it felt like I was slapping God in the face with, He saved my life, and how could I told Him, my whole life is yours, and now I'm taking it back. So I found a church. I was living in Edinburgh at the time. I found a church there. Went the one day. I was a little bit early, and again just helped packing out chairs and just being family. That's all I knew. And then the altar call came, and I realized now I have to recommit to God. So I put up my hand, and people were like, what? You were helping packing out? And I realized, no, I need to make this public declaration of my life as God's again. So then within a few months, I booked a ticket back to South Africa, because I realized that's not me living my life, is not God's plan for me. I knew that God wanted me back home. So I went back to the church where I was at, and unfortunately the stuff went down, and most of my friends backslid, and they would still invite me to go to parties late nights, and I just knew that God wants something else from me. So I started looking for a church, and a friend of my brother's actually told me about this new church, JoshGenChurch, that's just opened up. I must come visit with him. So I said yes, but I remember a few months later, my life was still going to church and having amazing experiences with God, but not my life, my full life. Like I still work, and then on Sundays I'll go to church and experience God, and then have my own relationship with God. And I remember after a few months being in JoshGen that I drove to the beach, and I was like, God, do you want me to commit to this church? Because like if I commit, there's no turning back. Like I can't still do my own thing anyway. So it sounds a bit like controlling, but everyone that I met in JoshGen was just so interested in becoming part of my life. And I realized how God's church, since I've joined JoshGen, is actually God's body, and that's how He manifests in this world. So after committing to JoshGen, it's been an incredible journey. I would think I was about 20 years old when I joined, and then I started feeling I've actually my whole life wanted to. I don't want to study anything. I just want to be a family. Have children, marry, have a family. And then it didn't happen the way that I planned. 20 became 25, became 30, became 35. And when I think actually it was just before I would turn 30, when I was so just like, God, this thing is all consuming. I don't want to think about guys the whole time, or worried where what's my future going to be like? Am I getting too old for kids or anything? And I just said, God, would you show me your peace? And I was lying in my bed, and the next moment, my room was filled with lights. The way it looked for me was, if you think of lots of different colored jellies and you mix it all together, like it makes these light rays. And I just started feeling this most amazing sense of, it's all fine. God is in control. It's all going to be okay. And I wasn't even worried about people in my life. I was just like, God, you're in control. You're on the throne. And I got this excitement in me. And I started running laps around the house. And I just put on my running shoes and I went for a long run. And that peace still stays with me. Whenever I get worried about something, I look back at God is in control. So then, when I was about, say, 34 or so, I was riding on a long road trip somewhere and was just chatting to God. And the next moment, I saw this vision of a little girl running to me. And she was probably about 6 or 7 or so. And then God said, this is Isabel, and she's your daughter. So that just threw a curveball, because I just put it down of, God, whatever you want for my life is fine. So I realized God actually wants me to have a family and to meet someone, which brought other fears on, and I'm sure everyone knows the struggles singles go through. And then I started opening my heart up to the possibility of not just serving God as a single, but serving a man also in a family. So then I went to a wedding one day, and a lady chatted to me, and she was like, you know what, I've got this friend in Durban who you two would be perfect together. And I was like, yes, okay, that's great. I've heard all of these stories before. Sure, whenever he's down, we can have a coffee. And then she went back to Durban, and she told this guy, no, I just met this lady at the wedding, and you two will be perfect. Here's her number. Would you message him? And he waited about a year until he was like, okay, well, let's message. So we started chatting over the phone. And then I wasn't sure what this plan is, but I immediately ran to my elders. I was like, this guy's messaging me. And they were like, no, calm down. You're just being friends. Maybe this is God, maybe not, but just keep your heart pure. So I was like, yes, I will do that. And then after a few months, I was swimming one morning. I was just having my morning gym routine, and I was telling God how this guy is just becoming a distraction. Actually, he's not filling any of the lists that I've got of the man God has for me. He's not my husband. Would you please just remove this distraction? And then God, in a jokingly way, said, what if that is my best for you? And then I just realized, oh my goodness, God, my plans are not your plans. You are so much higher. Your thoughts are so much higher, and the things that you've got for me is so different to what I think will be great. So I started opening my heart up to him, and today we've been married for about 5.5 years. And I'm married to the most incredible, gentle, patient guy who loves God passionately. And together we are better in God. So then we got married, and it was so exciting. And a little while later, a month or two later, I was pregnant. And then I was pregnant for about 2.5 months, and I had a miscarriage. And that was the hardest road I think that I've walked yet, because I've always been this loving life type of person, and easy-go-lucky, and things didn't really knock me down. But I was depressed. What I told my husband, I was like, I am 100% sad. And for the first week, I was completely sad. Actually, the first weekend was fun, and I understood. I chatted to God, and I knew that he was in it, and he explained to me that Isabel is in heaven, and I'll get to see her one day. Anyway, so it was just a road. It's a road that lots of women walk through. And then I felt pregnant again, and my son is now 4.5 years old. And then when he was about 1.5, I started getting the same headaches as I did when I was 12. So I went to my GP and I said, I don't know what's happening. What must I do? He said, would I rather go to the emergency room and let them take an MRI of your brain, tell them your history. And he wrote me a little letter, and that's what they did. And again, they saw this tumor in my head, about this size. So then the doctor just said, listen, you have to go see a neurologist. He checked the signs out. He said, it's nothing to worry about, but you're going to have to walk a road on this. So I was like, God, wait a minute. You healed me miraculously. And is it back now? What? Is this my life? What is happening? And the doctor explained to me, actually in 1990, the end of 1992-93, they found out that what shows on an MRI scan as a tumor sometimes could be like a strawberry, a clump of veins. And what they do is they bleed. So this clump of veins was still just growing in the back of my brain. And because I already had a bleed when I was 12 years old, they said, Rod, it's better to remove it. I think about 2 months later, I went in for the operation, not knowing if I'll ever see my family again, but God is in control. He's going to give me peace, and He's in control. And God has been incredibly faithful. It was about a year journey of me having brain trauma and not remembering things and being tired all the time. But even in that, God is so good. And I just realized, because it gave so much clarity of what happened when I was 12, I wasn't healed from cancer. The pressure released, so God healed me from an aneurysm. God took the pressure away, and He completely healed my veins. So I went through the operation, it was all fine, and we adopted a little boy, and he's about 1.5 years now. And sleepless nights and all of these things, I just know that God has my life in the palm of His hands. And a good friend of mine always explains that everything that happens to you, life throws you different curveballs, and life has its ups and its downs, and everything that happens to you is God filtered. God holds His hand saying, no, not that thing. Okay, this thing will make us stronger in this way, and this thing will bring out my son more in her. So I realized that God, even with your ups and your downs, sleepless nights and stressing, is God filtered. And I will continue to live my life in a way that honors Him for the audience of one. And I'm amazingly privileged. My family still serve God to this day. My parents love God and serve Him in an amazing way. And my brother, since that night in 1992, he also serves God passionately, wholeheartedly to this day. So my journey has been one of having to trust God, and God just giving me peace in times when I didn't know what to do, and directing my path. If you are in a situation similar, maybe you're trusting God for healing of one of your loved ones, or you for yourself with trusting for healing, God can show you peace, and God can help you through this, and God can heal. And then if also life gives you sad moments, life gives you happy moments, and I just had to, even from a young girl, having to trust God through all the decisions in my life. Making friends is a big decision, and putting yourself out there is a big decision. Just something else came to mind now when I growing up, I went to 5 different schools, and at the age of 20, I lived in 21 different homes. So having to make new friends has always been part of my life, and sometimes it's easier than others. But God has always been faithful. God will lead you through this, and I'm immensely privileged to be in a family that through any heartache, there's people that you can chat to and that brings godly perspective in the family of God. That's me.